Hey everyone, Evan Kirstel here with another great discussion. A pretty deep dive for a Monday morning. I have a new guest, Kevin Nethercott, uh, longtime telecom thought leader, insider, industry expert, and we're going to talk about the next wave of communication services enabled by something called CPaaS. Kevin, how are you?
Doing great. Evan, thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for joining. We're both old, so we what a way to start the discussion. We've seen a lot in this industry,
That's right. That's right.
telecom,
I did
communications,
have hair when we started, so that's absolutely the case.
uh, but it's probably the most exciting time to be in our industry.
Mhm.
And one of the key trends that we're seeing is the acceleration of communication service providers, enterprises, developers, and more into the CPaaS era. So maybe define for our folks who aren't, 30, 40 years in our industry, what is CPaaS and why is it so exciting?
Yeah, no, that's a great question and a great place to start. So CPaaS itself stands for Communication Platform as a Service. And so as other SaaS services, we're now driving communication services in a SaaS-based model. I think the easiest way to kind of grasp it is to think about how we as consumers interact with it. I'm sure many, if not all of the audience here has been in an Uber before and couldn't find their driver and either messaged or called them. And so that communication took place through a CPaaS. If you look at Uber as an example, as kind of a new gig economy type company, I know they've been around for a little while now, but they could not have enabled the business model that they have without a CPaaS. They needed really to integrate communications into the application that they were building and that consumers would be interacting with. And so CPaaS is that kind of middleware that sits between a telephone company and their network and the end user application. And so, if you get a text message from your bank telling you that you finally won the lottery and you got $1 million in your account, that text message is coming from a CPaaS. If you interact with an advanced IVR that are much more innovative, that closes that shortens that time of interaction, that's probably based on a CPaaS. So we as consumers, whether we know it or not, many of our interactions and communications that we have are really being generated and run by a CPaaS.
Yeah, this is in particular this COVID era. We've seen a surge of use cases and adoption, and developers get on board. Who are some of the companies traditionally that have been known as CPaaS companies? It's been a fairly small circle up until the last few years.
That's right. I think if you look at kind of the trajectory of where we started and where we've gotten to at this point, it really starts with someone like Twilio, who really embraced these APIs early on and really focused on the developer. Other companies that made an entree into the space early, companies like Tropo that sold to Cisco. You've got Nexmo that became part of Vonage, now part of Ericsson. So you can see how the food chain keeps getting larger and larger, by the different companies that have been acquiring. And so I think if you look at it, the way I like to think about CPaaS and where we're at is today, we're really focusing on the enterprise. And so where CPaaS started is what I like to call CPaaS 1.0, which was focused on the development community. And so it was Uber, Airbnb, and companies like this that needed to integrate. And so you had these hardcore developers that had this really cool new capability that they could bring into their environment and really drove huge growth. That's what Twilio was able to IPO on and have enormous growth. We're now clearly in what I would call 2.0, and that's where these companies are now pivoting, and you have new players coming in focusing on enterprise use cases. And so now it's more about integration with CRM systems, healthcare systems, logistics, banking, so that you can now have communications as part of an enterprise process. And we're probably, we're in the baseball playoff season now. We're probably in the third inning maybe of that game, and so there's still a lot of room to grow and play. But I think really where we end up is 3.0, which is really more of an end user experience rather than APIs, so that anybody can consume it, which then would allow the market and the industry to grow into the SMB market, which we all recognize is the long tail and the largest part of the opportunity of the market in the coming years. And so right now, everyone's really kind of focused on the enterprise, and those would be some of the major players that are there now.
Interesting. And tell us about your background and what led you to get involved as a key leader in the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. Like what led you to where we are here with this current community you're building?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's been a journey for sure. I'd have to say that it really started way back in 1996 when I started the first voice over IP company in Japan. And at the time, I think a lot of people were really enamored with the technology side of how we get voice from point A to point B for free over the internet, which was cool, especially being in Japan. It was expensive to call home to the US. But I've always been interested in the application layer and how customers can have more efficiencies, lower costs, and so forth. And so I started a number of companies in the space between 96 and now, and most recently was the chief commercial officer at a startup called Telestax. Telestax was one of the leading open source communities. In fact, many, if not most, of the CPaaSs that are out there launched originally on that RESTCOM open source code. And so we got to know the market and the industry quite well. But we recognized that, if you look at Twilio and Nexmo, and if you go to Europe with Cinch and Infobip and MessageBird and so forth, they were really focused more on a retail model where they were going directly to the enterprise or the developer.
Mm-hmm.
And we were quickly seeing a lot of carriers around the world that were losing business over the top to these providers. And so I feel what's happening is very similar to what happened originally with Skype, right? We had international phone calls that were expensive. They went to free with an over-the-top application. Similar with messaging, WhatsApp has come in and owns the whole messaging space around the world. And now at the enterprise layer, which is the most lucrative, biggest margin business for carriers, the same thing is happening with these over-the-top players coming in and taking these key accounts away from them. And so we saw a need to really help telephone companies around the world, first of all, play defense by having a product that would compete with these big CPaaS players, and then ultimately turn that platform into interesting applications where they could go on offense and increase the margins and offer more interesting applications. And so the area that we think has a huge opportunity for growth for the whole industry is really the CSPs. We use a lot of terms: CSPs, carriers, mobile operators, telephone companies. They all have to get into the CPaaS business. The writing is on the wall. If they don't do it, they really are just a dumb pipe. And so as we look at this, we recognize that they're dealing with a lot of new as they take on this model. And so what's happening is from the board level, from the C-suite, they see the landscape of the telecom market and say, we've got to be in this business. And so, the mandate comes down, and then people inside the organization are like, how do I spell CPaaS? They've never had anything to do with it. And so we feel like there is an opportunity to create a dialogue, a forum, a community by which we can work with carriers around the world, small and large. They could be a rural operator in Kansas or AT&T or NTT in Japan. They're all coming out with these same needs. And so as the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance, what we're trying to do is create an area where we can help the vendors get access to this market, but more importantly, really step in and help the CSPs understand what technology, what's my strategy, what's my go-to-market strategy. Customer success is absolutely critical in this model, because if they don't continue to use the product, your revenue drops, right? And so these are areas where we're hoping to create best practices and do that by hosting webinars and panels. We'll be doing some white papers. We're working closely with the analyst community, where they're already starting to incorporate and reach out to our members to get better data. And so these are the areas where we think as an alliance we can bring real value and create this community. Up until now, we've always been one session at somebody else's conference that's well attended, but the conversation needs to be longer than an hour to really dive in and make this work for everyone that's involved.
Love it. And the beauty of social media, of course, you can coalesce a community around these platforms for education and sharing ideas and insights. So really looking forward to participating as well. So tell us about where you are in your process of building the community and what you guys are up to at the moment, and maybe what's planned for the CPaaS Alliance.
Yeah, no, it's exciting how quickly this is coming together. So we're essentially doing two activities at once here. So the first is that we've now formally created the alliance, and so we will be bringing in what we're calling charter members. And so we'd like them to come in. We're going to partner with them to create essentially an advisory board that gives us the focus and direction that the industry wants to move forward on. And so we have a number of companies that we're engaged with, always open for more. And then we'll have two categories. We'll have a category really focused on the vendor that would like to come and participate in this community. And then we think the largest membership will really come from the CSPs around the world and bring those in as members as well. And then between the three of them, we'll have that community. And out of that community, then we'll have a voice and a direction. We do know that we'll have monthly panels with industry insiders. And so that might be something that we can collaborate as well moving forward. And we're launching an event in December where we will have weekly panels and interactions leading up to MWC in Barcelona at the end of February, which is our industry's largest show. Mm-hmm. And so we expect to have 50 plus participants over that time come and share their experience, and we'll have some good Q&A sessions and so forth, culminating with a meetup of sorts in Barcelona with some good food and a lot of good people. And so that's the goal, is to kind of create these, a platform by which we can engage and have different members of the community, whether they're individuals or corporations, come and interact with us at these virtual, and then ultimately, hopefully some face-to-face stuff as well.
Fantastic. And such an exciting time in this space. You've seen so many innovative applications as these platforms and networks open up to creative developers. So much video, being incorporated into these workflows and apps. What's exciting you when it comes down to some of the innovation, the use cases, and industries that are adopting CPaaS? Because it seems like there's just a wealth of opportunity out there for creators and innovators.
There really is, and I probably answer that two ways. I think my company Telestax was actually acquired by Mavenir about a year ago.
All right.
And, they're one of the leaders in 5G, and then you look at Ericsson paying $6 billion or whatever it was for Vonage Nexmo coming into that space. And so I think as we look forward, there's going to be a real need to bring value-added applications into these 5G networks. There's millions of dollars of investment taking place, and so they really need to find the use cases to layer on top of that as critical. But that's probably 2 to 3 years out as we start deploying those types of services. So if I look more at the short term, it really is about customer engagement. And so I think we use the term CPaaS because it's now out there, but really what that needs to equal is customer engagement. If I'm an enterprise, it's so competitive out there right now, and so that user experience becomes very, very important. I had an experience, an unfortunate one, where my car died and I needed a tow truck. And so I had a towing service as part of my insurance with Progressive. And I don't mean this to be a Progressive ad, but they did such a great job. So I called them and I got the IVR that you typically do, and you think, oh, great, 30 minutes before I can even know if they even can get a tow truck for me. Well, literally while I'm on the phone in the first minute, they sent me a text message with a link. And while I'm waiting, I'm clicking the link, I'm filling in my personal information, where I'm at. And before I even talk to anybody, they've already checked the database. Yes, you do have, towing services. And they let me know by text message that they've talked to the tow truck company, and the truck is on its way. It sends me a Google map, and I can actually track it all the way to where I'm at. So they never left any doubt that they were going to support me. I didn't have to keep calling them back wondering what was happening because I could see it real time in front of me. And so I really see how at the enterprise level and with customers and consumers, that's really where the rubber meets the road and where the real opportunity is for the growth of CPaaS and how we interact and work with the consumer through customer engagement and really enhancing that experience. We've got data that enterprises today, over 50% of them have already started engaging not only with digital transformation, but with CPaaS itself. And so we can see that this is really now we've kind of hit that critical mass market level, so that we've crossed that chasm, and now I think we're going to just see a ton of growth with these types
I would agree. And I'm particularly excited about really meaningful applications like the emergency services one you had, or in healthcare now, where, we're putting away the clipboards and the fax machines for more modern applications and messaging and rich text services and video being incorporated, and even real-time language translation into, telehealth appointments. There's just a wealth of capability that isn't at all fluff. There's real value add. So how can folks get involved, whether they're a carrier or an enterprise, maybe they're a platform
right.
provider, beyond just following and liking and your social handles? What else can they do?
Yeah, I think the first next step would be to come to the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance website, which is cpaasaa.com. We have all of the the key information there. I would also invite them to come like and follow our LinkedIn group. Our goal there is to have really create an interactive community. And so whether, to your point, whether that's an enterprise or a developer coming with ideas or questions, you're going to have a lot of expertise around the table there to respond and create a real rich dialogue where I think that, we can really support each other in this journey. So, I think those would be the two most practical places to come and find us, where we can then interact with you directly and, make it all work.
Oh, fantastic, Kevin. Well, thanks so much for sharing all the insight. So is this a passion project of yours? Are you still doing consulting and other stuff in parallel? Tell me more about what's up for you personally next.
Yeah, so on the personal front, this will clearly be as the managing partner, the the main 9 to 5 job, but we are finding that there are needs in the industry beyond what we can provide as an alliance. I do have a consulting group that I work with that helps both on the technical side as well as the marketing side. And then, I bring a lot of the strategy background from my years in the industry that the team can definitely help with as well. We also have the events that I was mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be partnering with the SmartCom Summit, which has been doing virtual events for a couple of years now. And so we'll have a close relationship with them. And so there will be an opportunity to take advantage of that and participate, independently of the alliance. There may be an opportunity there as well. So again, kind of the goal is to take, these couple decades of experience and I think, first of all, really kind of give back and build up the community, but then also where appropriate, pitch in, roll up my sleeves and help where I can.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the mission and onwards and upwards. Thanks so much for joining and sharing, the opportunity for folks to participate. Look forward to being involved.
Appreciate the time, Evan, and look forward to interacting with your audience and helping any way we can.
Thanks. Take care.
All right.